G'day folks and welcome. Now I'm just going to start by saying that I never intended to do this video on a couple of Joyo amps in a box that have been out for several years, the American and the AC Tone. What I was going to do is a review demo of a relatively new pedal called the Oxford Sound, which is based on an orange amp. But in doing so, I started to waffle on so much about the American and the AC Tone, which I've had for a while, that I realised that the intro was going to be ridiculously long, so I might as well just make like a prequel video, and this is it. Now you might be familiar with the American and the AC Tone. They're pretty heavily reviewed and talked about on YouTube, and there's a good reason for that. They are just incredible pedals for the price. I think what's going to be different about my video is just I use them a little bit differently than how other people tend to demo these pedals. A lot of people crank them up and show you how good they sound with lead tones and things like that. I actually use them a lot for clean tones, and that's rarely, if ever, talked about on some of these other videos. So hopefully you'll get something out of what I have to say about these if you've already got one, and if you don't, I might encourage you to buy one or both. Now we'll look at the American first. I paid $70 Australian, but I think they're even as low as 60, which is like 30 bucks American or less, or around about $30 I think. British pounds, yeah, 30 quid, Canadian, similar sort of price. Very, very affordable. And they're based on the Tech 21 Blonde. So it's supposed to be like a tweed Fender amp in a box. First thing you notice about the thing, it's ugly. The worst graphics, just terrible. Now I'm going to demo the American using an Artist TC59, obviously based on a Telecaster. I got this bad boy for about 220 bucks, brand new. If you get on the Artist website in Australia, you go to the bargain bin, you can often find stuff that's customer return or might have a ding in it or something. It's heavy as granite. It is the heaviest guitar I own. I bought a beautiful tweed case for it through Artist as well for less than 100 bucks. So it's a pretty amazing guitar. Now you can see it's got these humbucker pickups, they're called bullbucker pickups, but I'm actually going to use the split coil option by pulling out the tone knob for a more sort of traditional Telecaster tone. Pickup selector is neck position. Now this is just a simplified version of how I tend to use these amp in a box pedals in recording. Now I've dialed in a really basic sound that's just nice. The EQs are all past noon, a little bit more low than the other two. Voice is about 3 o'clock, which is quite a richer sound. And I've got the drive on 0. Now I'm splitting the signal using a pedal here, but you can just buy a splitter cable and do the same. Now one lead is going into my amplifier and the other is going into my Focusrite Scarlett interface, and the amp is mic'd up with a Shure SM57. And if you are going to do this, always make sure you're in phase with the two signals. But it's basically you've got to have the waves exactly lined up so the peaks and troughs are doing the same thing. As soon as you put them out of phase, it sounds awful and you lose all the guts and everything to it. So if you don't know anything about phase, then I would definitely YouTube it and have a look at someone talking about it, but it's very, very important. Alright, so I will just play a little piece, and what you're going to hear is the exact sound coming out of the interface into the computer. There's no EQing or anything yet, but from now on I will actually do a bit of EQ and compression. Just because it is a recording thing, I'm just going to get it sounding a little bit sweeter. So here it is. Okay, so that's just straight through the interface. Now I'm going to play the same thing, but this is how it sounded coming out of the amp. What I tend to find is that when I do record both miking up and through the interface, sometimes I'll have a preference for one over the other. Sometimes I will decide that I prefer the interface, or sometimes I don't like it, depending on how it sits in the mix. Most times I will use a combination of the two. This is a great way to record bass too. You can have a bass going through an amp, you know, with a bit of dirt, overdrive, whatever, and then also do a clean bass tone into the other channel using one of these pedals. Fantastic results. So it's better than just going straight into the interface. This, you can actually shape the tone, sculpt the tone a little bit. And now moving the selector switch to where it's both the bridge and neck pickups. You can have a listen to that. That's just the sound coming out of the interface. And here's the sound through the amp. And finally, we'll get a bit of tally spank using the bridge pickup. Now, to be remiss of me not to show off the drive a little bit, it is a great drive. These pedals really have four purposes, I reckon. A, they're what I'm doing here. They're just a great way to record straight into the box, straight into the computer. And secondly, you can take them with you to a gig if you don't want to use your amp, or your amp blows up or something. Put this in your bag and pull it out, and then get the tone you want and put it through the PA system, the house PA system, and you've got an amp, and you can put your pedal board through it. Thirdly, it's something you can put in front of your amp to sculpt the tone, almost like you would use a clon or something like that, with a tiny bit of drive or whatever, just to actually make your amp sound better. Fourth, it's just an overdrive pedal. You could just use this purely as an overdrive pedal, and I'm going to play with a touch of overdrive. And now I'm going to max out the overdrive, and you can hear what this thing sounds like cranked to the full. So this is like if a Fender was completely cranked to its maximum. So as you can hear, that's pretty rock and roll. So you can see why a lot of people bang on about these. But as much as I like the American, there are two more, what you would call almost first generation amps, which is your Fender, Marshall, Vox. Now there is one called the British Sound, which I don't own. I don't really feel I need it, but you can check that out. But the AC tone, which is based on a Vox AC30, is my personal favourite. And I'm going to use the Stratocaster, the Fender Stratocaster, to demo this one. To me, it's just a bit brighter, chimier than the American. But if I took the AC tone to do a gig and I accidentally packed the American instead, it wouldn't bother me one iota. They're pretty similar. They are very, very similar in sound. But I do like the chiminess and the brightness of the AC tone. So again, I'm going to start by playing the neck pickup, or position one of the Fender Strat, straight into the interface through the AC tone. Okay, that's with no EQ, anything like that. And I'll do the same again. I'll play you what the amp sounds like, mic'd up. Now, like a lot of Strat players, I'm going to completely bypass the middle pickup. I don't use the middle pickup, and I don't know why. It's a great sound. But I'm going to show you the two out of phase selections on the 5-way, the 2 and 4. And what I find for this sound, you do need to add a bit of drive, or at least it sounds good when you add a bit of drive to it. So I'm just going to slightly tweak that drive knob up, and you can hear it. This is the neck and middle pickup first. So you can hear there, it's still got that chiminess, but definitely a little bit more attitude. Now, this is just straight into the interface, the middle and bridge pickup. Now, when when you think of Vox amps, I think the first band that really put Vox amplification on the map were the Shadows. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my trusty NuX tape core, because it's got a taped style delay. I love this pedal, and I'm going to do some little Hank Marvin-esque playing. If I botch it, it's deliberate, because I just don't want the copyright bots to demonetize me. Well, that's my excuse for playing badly, and I'll stick to it. So apologies to any Shadows fans for the atrocity I just committed there. But you can hear that sound anyway. That's the classic Shadows tone, as badly as it was played. Now, again, cannot finish without playing some drive. So I'm going to start with a bit of drive. And then finally, some full throttle. Now, I just need to jump in at this point and talk about the voice control knob, which is on the bottom row. Top row, of course, is just low, middle and high EQ settings, but the voice control knob is an interesting one, and it is mentioned in the instruction manual as being a frequency response to simulate different amp sounds. But I look at it like anything left of 12 o'clock, it's sort of a smaller type of an amp, and once you get past 12, imagine it's a bigger speaker cabinet. It gets a richer tone and a bigger tone. That's the way I sort of look at it. It's an interesting thing. It's very hard to demonstrate as well, because it's so much based on personal taste. For a clean tone, the usable zone is really only between 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Anything with a clean tone less than 10 o'clock is really thin and anemic. Anything beyond 3 o'clock is like a cocked wah-wah pedal, really honky and unpleasant, and it breaks up, but not in a nice way. If you're using more drive, you can sort of have a bit more fun with it, and it does open up. It's a more rich tone beyond 12 o'clock and a thinner sound below noon. But it's a cool option. It just gives you that extra tweakability beyond the EQ. Now I'm going to finish by playing something I prepared earlier. This is both the American and the AC tone, separate speakers used in a song. It's a cover of a song called Black is the Colour of My True Love's Hair, an old folk song. When I first bought these pedals, I wanted to almost do a shootout to see which one was better. So what I decided to do was using the AC tone in one speaker and the American in the other speaker. And by the time I EQ'd and compressed and added reverb, I don't think I could barely tell the difference between either of them, but you can hear the clean sounds. So that's about it. Sorry that this video has been a little bit long. Hopefully you've got something out of it, if you've even seen other videos about either of these pedals, or if you even own one yourself. Yeah, just showing you how I go about using them to record. And I use them all the time. I usually have one sitting on top of the Focusrite, just always have the option. Anyway, that's enough. I'll be back with the Orange Oxford Sound demo review probably in the next week or so. So until then, keep smiling and bye for now.